Hi, you're welcome to Success Tips. In this video today, we will be discussing about one very important topic, which is money doesn't make you rich. The general public has this ideology that money brings wealth. Money makes one rich. You will hear people make comments like, if I get 10 million, then I will be set for life. If I can have someone dash me 5 million, then I will quit my job. I will want you to answer the following questions. Are all rich people bad people? I'm sure your answer is gonna be no. Then the next question is this. Are all rich people stingy and do not want to lift others? I am sure your answer is gonna be no. Then my last question is gonna be this. Why are all rich people surrounded by poor relatives and family? This is the question we are going to be answering in this video. Why do people remain poor even when they have access to money? Money, before it multiplies in your hands, it requires you to have a craft. When money comes to a person that does not have a craft, it will be more or less like a petrol being poured into an empty generator tank. The generator will run and then continue functioning, but the tragic part of it is that the petrol will definitely come to an end where the petrol will be completely used up by that generator, and of course the generator will now stop along the line. Now I want you to take a look at this, okay? Before the petrol finished in the tank of that generator, the generator was running as though it was never going to stop, okay? But then when the petrol just got to finish, that was when the generator stopped. I brought this example because the next thing you want to be saying if you hear the word money won't make you rich is, okay, now if I get that money, I'll just sink it into business. I'll just start a business and then start running. I'll start a world-class business. I will want to start a business that once I get that money, I will just become a multimillionaire. Okay, so that is the major reason I brought that example for you, so that you will get to understand that business is not all about money. Just the way that generator will be using that diesel or petrol that is within its own tank, and then once that tank becomes empty, the generator will stop. That is how a person that doesn't have a craft, when he or she have access to money, that is how that business will just crumble down the moment that money stops. You may start a business and then you have a startup capital of 5 million, for instance. You will continue running that business. It will be doing very well. Customers will come and purchase things. Everything will seem to be moving fine until when that startup capital comes to an end. That is where you now begin to see that the business will begin to shatter away, just the way that generator stopped when the petrol finished in its own tank. That is how that business will stop. Literally, that business was only surviving on that startup capital, and it was now working and functioning because of that startup capital, which it was continuously consuming gradually until it finished. Because you lack the appropriate craft for you to be able to maintain that money, multiply that money, retain that business. That is why that money just disappeared and then the business just shattered away, simply because you did not have that craft that it takes. This is the same reason you see a lot of oil filling stations, are abandoned, and then rust are just bringing them down and crumbling away. That is why you see a lot of shops, that have been existing for the past few years, and then all of a sudden they are just closed down and then nothing is happening there again. That is why you see a lot of businesses that have started for long years, and then as time goes on, that is how the business came to an end. Why? Because the people had the money, but they lacked craft. I'm sure most people just believe that, okay, oil and gas is one of the booming business that if you go into that kind of business, you're never gonna lose out. But have you ever sit down and then ask yourself, okay, now why are then all those filling stations that you see empty and abandoned standing there and nobody in there? The simple answer and the simple reason for that is because those people never had craft in order to be able to multiply money. They never had craft in order to build wealth. They never had craft in order to retain businesses. You will see people put up a lot of money, just to have a startup capital for business, and then once they get that business running, the business will be running for some time until when that startup capital gets to crumble down. In the same manner that generator only survives and then functions on that petrol that is inside its own tank, that is how business is started by people who do not have craft, only survives on the startup capital. And then as the startup capital keeps on going down until it finishes, that is how the business comes to an end. So it's very important for you to understand that money can never make you rich, okay? But for you to become rich, for you to become truly rich, you need craft. Most people, when they hear about riches, all that comes to their mind is money, okay? Or most people, when they hear about it, all that comes to their mind is business, okay? So business, just like every other career, just like every other thing you want to do with your own life, it's something that you just don't jump into it with money and then you succeed. No, it doesn't happen that way. You need to have a valid craft. Okay, so towards the end of the video, we will be discussing on the things and the craft and the key areas that you will need to be focusing on if you really want to become rich with the money you're going to be gathering or putting up as a startup capital. So please stick to the end of this video so that you will get that key points that will be helpful and then will be a life-turning moments for you. Now, note this down, okay? Money in the hands of a person who does not have a craft is more or less like, you know, petrol inside a generator tank, okay, which will continuously reduce until when the fuel finishes in the tank, okay? But money in the hands of a person who has a craft, a valid craft, is more or less like a seed that has been planted, okay? That money will continue to multiply just as a seed will germinate and then yield multiple fruits, you know, in a geometric manner. That is how money is in the hands of a person that has a craft. Now let's move to the next part of this video. If money won't make you rich, then what exactly can make a person rich? First of all, we need to start by understanding what riches, what wealth means in itself. Now, get this right, okay? Riches and wealth is tied to an individual who has a relevant craft deployed appropriately in a given period of time. We have 4 major key points. So if you want to understand the subject of wealth and riches, you have to pay attention to these 4 key points, okay? Now, there is a person or an individual, okay? That is one. And then secondly, there is relevant skills, okay? Now, then thirdly, there is deployment, okay? Strategic deployment, okay? Then the last one is a period of time. So these are the 4 points or the 4 key points that you need to pay attention to if you really want to understand the subject of wealth, and then if you really want to be truly rich, that is what you need to pay attention to. So we will just break them down briefly so that you will get to understand it, and then from there you can start working on building your own riches. Now the first key point you need to focus on is an individual or a person, okay? So wealth is not tied to a thing, it doesn't get tied to an object, it doesn't get tied to a vacuum, okay? So wealth is tied to an individual, it's tied to a personality, okay? So that is why you will see people saying, okay, that person is rich, Mr. A is rich, Mr. B is rich, she is rich, he is rich, but you'll never hear them saying that cow is rich or that car is rich, that aeroplane is rich. You'll never hear people saying that, okay? All you will get to hear people saying is that person is rich, okay? So riches, you know, is tied down to a personality. For riches to exist, for wealth to exist, there need to be an existing personality, there need to be an existing human being to which it will be tied to. So that is the first key point you need to focus on. The second key point you need to have at the back of your mind is relevant craft, okay? So anybody who understands what money represents and then understands how to return that money and then understands how to multiply it, then it's said to be a person that have a relevant craft. That is when you will see an individual accumulate money and then build wealth and riches with just a little amount of money that is given to him or her, simply because he or she has a relevant craft that can multiply that money. Relevant craft is not something that comes naturally, is not something that a person is being born with, but it's something that can be learned, okay? But yet so many people suffer poverty, so many people want riches and admire riches, but they never get any, simply because they find it difficult to acquire these relevant crafts. Relevant crafts can be understanding of business, can be your skills, can be your knowledge, can be anything that you do that can be able to attract other people's money to come to you in exchange of that skills or in exchange of that craft that you have within you. The third key point you need to be focusing on is appropriate deployment of that craft, okay? So we have so many people that have very significant craft, very important and relevant craft, but they still remain poor simply because they don't understand the strategies of implementing and deploying those, you know, crafts in a very strategic way. How appropriate the deployment of your craft depends on factors like timing, location, strategies, and etc. Now let me give you a scenario so that you will get to understand what I mean by this, okay? Let's say you want to start a logistics business, okay, in a village that is having just 20 households that are barely striving, you know, to feed themselves, and then you just come to that village and then you deploy your business, you know, your logistics business worth 20 million, okay? You are going to watch that business crumble down simply because you did not deploy it appropriately. What was the factor in that scenario? The location. So it's very important for you to understand that when it comes to multiplying your money, when it comes to riches, strategic deployment matters. Now, the last key point I will want you to be looking at when you talk about riches is period of time. This is also another important determinant of riches. Okay, you can never be rich for a longer period of time as long as you don't maintain what it takes for you to be rich. In another word, you cannot be rich forever unless you focus and then keep on improving yourself on these 4 major key points of becoming rich. That is why you see people that used to be rich in the past, all of a sudden those people become poor. Why? Because they failed to maintain, they failed to focus continuously on these 4 key points that we just discussed. Now let me give you an example of this. During that era of that kerosene lamp, all the companies that used to manufacture, kerosene lamp used to be, rich companies, used to be very wealthy people that owns that company and things like that. Okay, now as time was changing and then the light bulb was coming into play, that is when that kerosene lamp was now phasing out. If it now happens to be that those people who used to manufacture kerosene lamp did not, upgrade or improve their relevance into the current trend, into the current period of time, into the current trend of that timing, that is when those companies and people will now lose the relevance of their craft. And as a result of that, that is how their money will continue to go down until when the money they used to have finishes and then suddenly they will just become poor. If you notice, we made mention of relevant craft being part of the things that can be able to bring riches to an individual. And then if that craft becomes irrelevant, that is how that craft will no longer be useful, and then of course you are not going to continue drawing riches to yourself, and that is how the current riches that you have will continue to leave you until it disappears. If you currently do not have money, stop believing that money alone, when it comes to you, it will make you rich. Stop believing that fallacy, okay? But instead, start building your personality, okay? Start building relevant crafts upon yourself, okay? Start working within period of time that, look at the relevance of things, understand the trend, understand the timings of things, okay? And then lastly, focus on the proper deployment of that craft that you are building upon yourself, so that when the money comes to you, that is when you will now be equipped with the ability to be able to multiply that money, and then you will be among the category of people that when money comes to them, it now becomes a seed. I want you to believe this. Even if you don't have money currently, but if you have these 4 major key points, you have a great personality, you keep improving yourself, you acquire relevant values and crafts, and then you have, an understanding of strategic deployment of that craft, and then you have an understanding of timing, believe you me, you are rich. Even if you don't have money currently, okay? I want you to believe this, because it's just a matter of time that money will follow suit. I believe this video was able to help you to understand as to why money won't make you rich, and it will have also open your eye, to understand the things you need to do so that when money comes to you, then it can suddenly make you rich. I believe this video was very helpful, and I believe you have found value in this video. If this is your first time on this YouTube channel, I will want you to click on the subscribe button below and turn on the notification bell so that when the next content comes up, you will be notified. And if you're a returning viewer, I would love to say thank you. I need one favor from you guys. Please share this video with just one person. Thank you. See you guys in another video. Bye.